Hi, good afternoon. On a beautiful sunny day. I hope you guys have managed to get out in the weather today and enjoy the sun. It's so nice to have the spring and the hope of everything lifting and this beautiful day. Yeah. So I hope you're getting to enjoy some of it. So yeah, welcome to all the occupiers of White City Place, and thanks for being here. And I hope that these meditation sessions are helping. Um, yeah, getting through this interesting time. I wanted to talk a little bit today about why we do meditation, why it's useful to us, why it helps our health, why uh, it's really good for stress, why it's good for anxiety. Because I'm a great believer that when you know the why behind something, um, it not only becomes more interesting, but it becomes more personal. When you understand the why behind something, you know why you're doing it. And also, it just kind of brings it closer to home when you know and understand the mechanics behind, for example, what's happening in your brain, um, or your body when you're meditating, and why we do it. And the great thing is that science has come such a long way in enabling us to understand um, the mechanisms in our brain and in our body, so that we can carry out these studies that show changes in the brain, and also studies that have been carried out as to how people feel after a 8-week session of meditation in terms of depression, sense of purpose, uh, general stress levels. Um, yeah, so I wanted to kind of talk about that. I will just say, if anyone's new to meditating with me, I do talk a little bit each week at the beginning, because I think it's important to have a theme around, not important, it's just nice to be able to bring up certain themes around meditation that you might not know about or haven't heard about for a while or need to be reminded about. So that's why I wanted to talk first. And it just helps it be more interesting for you as well, something to aim for. So yeah, so after I've spoken for a little bit each time, I then take you into a guided meditation. So you don't need to worry about anything or remember anything. You just come along for the ride, and I will guide you all the way through. Also, at the end of the meditation, what I tend to do is just leave you to sit there when I close the session, so that you can also bring yourself out of the meditation. I think it's really important to build your confidence in terms of meditating on your own. I do this once a week with you, but um, if you've been enjoying it and want to carry on the tools that I use, then it's really good to practice that on your own. So building that confidence, I can do this on my own. I don't need to hear Viv's voice or sorry, that's my name. I should introduce myself, Vivian, Viv. Um, if you learn that you don't need to do it with me, or even using an app. When you learn to meditate on your own, it's really, really liberating, because that means you can take it anywhere at any time, even lying in bed trying to sleep. You don't want to have to be plugging in, listening to somebody's voice. So it's good to learn the little tools on your own. So, yes, I want to talk about two areas of your brain, um, in terms of when we have done scientific experiments and what we found with these areas of the brain during meditation. So I was really lucky enough, about a decade ago, to witness one of these studies on a meditator. So I was sitting in a room which had a little stage. There may be 100 or so people there, and a seasoned meditator was sitting on the stage, and they placed electrodes. This is called the EEG, um, where they put electrodes on your scalp, and they're detecting any brain activity through these electrodes, which then get the activity shows the brain on a big screen. So we as onlookers could watch the screen and watch the changes in the brain as and when they happened in real time, which was really exciting. So what we've discovered from looking at these images, these neuro images, um, on a screen, is that there's an area above, it's on both sides of your brain actually, just above the ear, in the limbic system, which is your emotional center. That's the part of the brain that deals with emotions. You've got a little almond shaped area of that limbic system, just kind of above the ears. That's why I put my fingers there so you can kind of see where it is, called the amygdala. And the amygdala is really primed to look out for anything fear related. So this amygdala takes us right back to when we were in our hunter-gatherer days, and fear was a very different thing in those days because they had to keep safe from wildebeests, particularly wild buffaloes that could take a man down and eat them for dinner. So yeah, the fear factor was a very different thing to what we have, how we show fear now. But the brain is the same in that we have the amygdala, they have the amygdala. So your brain doesn't know the difference between what makes you feel fearful about something, even though your brain has evolved and we have changed over, I was going to say decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, we've changed. But the brain mechanic is the same. A little bit like if you had a pencil with a rubber on the end back in the historic days. Not that you would need a pencil then. They didn't have, there was no such thing, but let's just use it for argument's sake. You had a pencil and a piece of paper back in the historic days. That pencil with the rubber on the end would be doing the same thing as if we have a rubber and a pencil now, right? Because that's its job. It doesn't have its own brain, its individual brain. That's its job. That's the mechanic of that pencil, to write and then to erase. So it's the same pencil, whether it was thousands of years ago or today. It's the same with the amygdala. So it is a tool. So it can't tell the difference, right? So when we show fear, the size of the amygdala, this amygdala goes on high alert. Not when we show fear, sorry, when we see something that could trigger this fearful response. The amygdala, we can see on these brain scans, gets slightly bigger and the gray matter around it expands. And that shows that it's being very active. What we're trying to do and what we can see with meditation is that the size and the activity around the amygdala decreases in meditation. And that's good because when the amygdala is on high alert, we're on high alert. That means it triggers our stress response. It's kind of all you need to know for today, really. I could go right into that, but I won't. It triggers our stress response. The amygdala is the first thing. You see something through your eyes, that bounces off the occipital lobe at the back of your head, which sends a message to your amygdala, but also this other part of the brain that I'm going to mention in a minute, the hippocampus. So the first thing first, the amygdala gets it, and if it's something that it thinks might be harmful or we need to be aware, it'll go on high alert, and that triggers um, the hypothalamus to release cortisol and adrenaline into your system, and the whole stress response happens. So really, it's ideal to keep the amygdala, because that's the first starting point from the fear factor. We want to try and keep that nice and relaxed. We don't want it to go off onto high alert all the time, because if we do, something triggers the hypothalamus triggers the adrenaline and cortisol, which triggers all the other stress responses. So we want to stop the first trigger, and that's the amygdala. So we want to try and keep the amygdala calm. That's the first thing. The other thing is that from the occipital lobe, I remember I said it sent a message to the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus is your memory center. It recognizes, it can be your, if you like, it can be your Google search engine. It makes sense of what the eye sees. It makes sense of what it sees. And it sends the correct information to the front of our head, our prefrontal cortex, which rationalizes, makes plans, organizes, keeps everything calm, and manages to keep the amygdala calm as well. Taxi drivers have very large hippocampuses, because you can imagine they have to, especially London, they have to remember all the street names, all the districts. They have to know exactly where they're going. Well, the London cabbies anyway. I can't necessarily talk about Uber, but the whole knowledge that the taxi drivers have in London, they have larger hippocampuses because they have to have more of that spatial awareness. All right. So why is that important in meditation? Because when we are really honing our focus, the whole point of meditation is to kind of hone the focus so that we're not littering our minds with stuff that doesn't serve us. So we're trying to kind of keep the focus centralized and keep the fear factor, the amygdala, nice and calm, so that we're not activating our stress response unnecessarily. So we could see with this, back to the meditator on the stage, we could see the amygdala calming down before our eyes. We could see the shape of it changing slightly, getting slightly smaller, and there was less activity in the amygdala. So that proved to us that through meditation, we can calm the mind down. It also helps to know that the focus, understanding the pictures that we see in the hippocampus and that information that's passed on to the prefrontal cortex here, remember, at the front of your head, to make sense of the world, to keep a nice steady focus on what's real and what isn't. So I wanted to point that out before we start the meditation, because I think knowledge is power, and I think it really helps us get our own heads around why we do it, why it's useful. When you know there's a scientific, proven study behind why it's useful, then it makes it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more personal. So there we are. That's why I thought I'd bring that up today. Okay, so we're going to start off with a couple of breath exercises, and then we're going to do a more focused one where we're going to be using our fingers, but you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to remember anything. I'm going to talk you through it, but I'm just letting you know that's the way it's going to go, just in line with what we were talking about. And the focus alone, just by focusing on something that you are doing in the present, like right now, the focus will be on that. Let's just say the fingertips. By doing that, by being present, you're not thinking about the past and you're not worrying about the future. So you're staying present. And what that does is it kind of gets rid of all the trash that we don't need to carry around with us all day long. We can just kind of let some of that stuff go and just be here in the here and now. So that's why we like to focus, because that also calms everything right down in our amygdala and how we see the world. So let's just try and stay present. So yeah, I'll stop talking now so we can get on to it. So yeah, so sitting, closing your eyes. And while I've been talking, you would probably have been less conscious of how you were breathing. So just taking a kind of mental cursory glance at your breath from the inside. And just noticing how it's coming in and out of your body without you even thinking about it. I'd like you to become the observer. Step back. And while you're just observing the mind, we're just going to do a little body scan to see how we are sitting comfortably. So let's just take our attention to the left knee. How does the left knee feel right now? Does it feel relaxed? Does it feel like there are some restrictions in the knee? Does it feel warm inside? Can you differentiate between the center of the knee from a feeling point of view? Can you kind of take yourself into the center of the knee? And notice how different that is if you take yourself to the kneecap. More on the outside, you kind of get this idea of maybe a bit of softness and warmth on the inside. And with the kneecap, you might get an idea of a harder bone that slides over the knee. There's a bit of movability with that kneecap. So just getting a really good sense of that left knee and seeing if you can just soften anywhere just by thinking about it, just that idea of letting go a little bit more. And from that left knee, just travel down your leg to your left big toe and see if you can just feel the left big toe in isolation. So just getting a sense of where all these parts of your body are without you having to move them or touch them. You just sense it from the inside. So feeling that big toe. And then I'd like you to leap across to your right ankle. So the ankle joint is very well used. And much like the knee, it has lots of tendons, ligaments, little muscles around it. So again, just getting a sense of letting go of the ankle, however you're sitting. Doesn't matter if you're cross-legged, legs straight, sitting in a chair, sitting on the floor, it doesn't make any difference. You're just getting a sense from the inside. And then just traveling up that right leg into the right hip socket. So just kind of landing there and seeing if there's an idea of softening from the inside there as well. A very, very well used joint. Really, the knees, the ankles, the hips, the most well used joints in our body. They do a lot of work. So they hang on to a lot of muscles all day long. Letting that go. And then moving through the pelvis from the right hip socket to the left hip socket. So just connecting both sides of the body, seeing if there's any openness in the left hip socket. Yeah. And then coming into the sacrum, so that central point just at the bottom of your spine, that flat piece of bone that divides your pelvis in two on the left and the right. So the sacrum just sitting at the bottom of the spine in that central location. And getting an idea from there if you feel even sided, or if you feel like maybe you're tipping onto one side more than the other. And no need to change anything if you're comfortable. You don't need to change a thing. Just sit with that nice equilibrium, balance on both sides. Even if you're slightly off balance, it doesn't matter. You're feeling a sense of balance. And imagining that the bottom of your spine is the bottom of a zip. And you're now zipping up from the bottom of the spine, traveling up the back, right all the way past through the middle of the shoulder blades, up to the bottom of your neck. Now that might have naturally made you sit up a little bit. Don't worry if it didn't. A little bit like zipping up a jacket at the back. You're going to feel that length in the spine. And if you did feel a bit of length in the spine, make sure your shoulders are dropping away from the ears. Don't bring them up with the zip. Let your shoulders just remain heavy, hanging away from the ears. And then getting a sense of your neck. So starting at the bottom of the neck and traveling up to the base of your skull. So, you'll make a little bit of an indent, a bit of a kind of semicircle as you go into the neck and arrive at the bottom of the skull. And then imagine that you are gently tapping your fingers on the bottom of your skull and tap the fingers over the back all the way to the crown of your head. So you're tapping over the scalp till you get the crown of your head. Now there's a nice central point. So imagine that when you get to the crown of the head, there's a little loop that you can just poke a finger through, and imagine that there's a rope extending from that loop. And someone's gently just lifting the rope up, and that just lifts up your head a little bit more. Certainly getting a sense of where the crown of the head is. And you can let go of the rope and just imagine in your mind's eye that you're tracing a finger from the crown of your head over the forehead so you can feel the smooth skin as the finger just traces down onto the bridge of the nose and then all the way down the nose till you get to the bottom of the nose, turning the corner of the nose, and then down that little valley, the crease that's between your nose and your mouth, to your upper lip. And you can take the imaginary finger away and just take your attention to your upper lip. As you breathe in and out, you might be conscious of the air coming in and out through the nostrils if you're breathing through your nose. If your mouth is open because you're breathing through your mouth, noticing the sides of the mouth that do meet. And if you're breathing through your nose, noticing where the lips meet. Going inside your mouth, the tongue against the lowest teeth, the bottom teeth. sitting in the palate. The tongue just rests there. And noticing when you rest the tongue, how heavy the tongue is. It's a strong muscle. Letting the tongue just relax with the knowledge that the back of the tongue just falls down the throat. Noticing if there's any saliva in the mouth. Now noticing the air coming in either through the mouth or the nose and following the back of the tongue down the throat and into the lungs. So you might feel a little bit of movement through the chest, maybe the belly. And as you breathe out, you follow the breath back in reverse, coming back out the body again. So just taking a few breaths like this into the nose or mouth, filling yourself up and emptying back out. The same route. Feeling a little bit of expansion on the inhale and a little bit of contraction on the out breath. Noticing on the in breath if it's just the chest that's expanding, the rib cage, or if you can feel the abdominal breathing happening in the belly. So maybe the breath will go all the way there. Maybe it just stops in the chest and comes back. Just noticing that journey in and out. Now, if your palms are resting on your lap, I'd like you just to separate the hands and have your palms facing upwards. So just let the backs of your hands rest on your lap with your palms facing up. Now, this next breathing exercise is quite a focus. So I'll be talking you through this breathing exercise. But what we will do, you don't have to start now, but what we will do is we're going to be breathing in through one of the hands first. We'll start off with the thumb because you're the way that your hands are sitting, the thumbs are out at the sides, right? And the pinkies are on the insides. So I'll be starting off with one hand and I'll be counting through the fingers. I'll label them all as we get there. But what we're going to be doing is linking this with the breath, and we're going to link it with 5. So we're going to be breathing in for 5. So we're going to start at the thumb. By the time we get to the pinky, that'll be the top of the in breath. And then we're going to jump over. We're going to hold the breath just for one beat as we jump over, bridging the gap to the other hand, which will be the pinky because we're bridging that gap between the hands. And that'll be the start of the out breath as we then go through each finger with the out breath. And then we'll start in reverse. We'll go back. So I'm going to do that a few times with you. And then it'll subtly change, but I will let you know when that is and what you need to do then. So before we start all of that, we're going to take 3 breaths in. And I want you to do it in your own time. I want you to breathe in nice and slowly. So starting now, breathing in nice and slowly. Then when you get to the top of your in-breath, make it slow, just slowly exhaling. So even though you're breathing in slowly, I want you to breathe out a little bit more. So it might be that you do it slower or it's more of a count for a longer time. The same result at the end of whether you count it or you just slow it down. It's going to be a longer out breath. So doing 3 of those. No rush at all. But when you finish that last third breath, I'd like you to take your attention behind your eyelids. And because it's a nice day today, if you're sitting in a room, hopefully with a window, you'll notice that when you look behind your eyelids, there's enough light to see a color. So it's not imagined, this is a color you can see. The likelihood is it might have a pink tinge to it, might be orangey, could be yellow, could be green. But whatever color that is, noticing that color, and we're going to come back here each time between the hands, and I will guide you back here. But when I say go back to the eyelids, this is where I mean coming back and seeing the color. So you're literally looking at the back of your eyelids. Okay. All right, let's start this. So with your hands facing up, then be breathing in for 5. I'm going to start off with the right thumb. So breathing in, thumb, index, middle, fourth finger, pinky, hold it, bridge the gap over to the left pinky, and out. Fourth finger, middle finger, index finger, thumb. Going back, breathing in, left thumb, index finger, middle, fourth, pinky, hold the breath in, jump the gap, right pinky, right fourth finger, middle finger, index finger, and thumb, the end of the breath. Take your attention to the back of the eyelids. Breathing in, breathing out. Hold that focus. One more breath. Looking at the color. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, right thumb. 2, 3, 4. Pinky. Hold the breath as you leap the gap to the left pinky. Breathing out. Fourth finger, middle finger, index finger, and a thumb. Breathing in, left thumb. 2, 3, 4. Left pinky. Hold the breath as you leap back to the right pinky. Breathing out. 2, 3. Index finger, thumb. Take your attention to the back of your eyelids. Breathing in, breathing out. And again, holding the color in your focus. One more breath here. Looking at the color, holding that focus. Breathing in, right thumb. 2, 3, 4. Right pinky, hold the breath in as you leap over to the left pinky. Breathing out. 2, middle finger, index, thumb. Breathing in, left thumb. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath as you make the leap to the right pinky. Out. 2, 3, 4. Left thumb. Look at the back of your eyelids. Holding the color. Breathing in. Breathing out. Just a few more breaths here. See if you can maintain the color. Nothing else comes in. You're holding that focus. It's quite a strong focus. Now, when you go back to the right hand, I just want you to breathe in normally, but just going down the fingers. So just notice your normal breath and see if it makes it up to 5 or not. But just starting off with your right thumb, breathing in, following the fingers as you count mentally, but just breathing out when you're ready. Don't worry if it's 5. Don't worry if it's 4. Don't worry if it's 7. Just notice your own breath traveling through your thumbs, going back in reverse when you're ready. You might find that when you make the leap, you want to hold the breath all the way down the fingers. And if you do, then do that. Play around with this little experiment for yourself. You also might find that you want your breath in or your breath out to last longer than the 5. So don't worry if you get to finger number 7 and you still haven't finished your in breath. Keep going, it doesn't matter. But every now and then, bring yourself back into that centered space behind your eyelids and see if you can increase the time there with no distractions. Don't worry if a thought comes in. Please don't worry about that. But this is why we're just kind of going back and forward to behind the eyelids in little moments of time because it's easier to hold the focus for a shorter time. But then we try and increase that shorter time each time you go back there. And if you find that your thoughts come in when you go back to that space, then go straight back to the fingers again. Distract yourself with your fingers, you're still in the present moment. And notice when you're counting on your fingers, regardless of how you're breathing, feeling each finger individually. And the cool thing is that when you use your hands like this and you don't move them, they start to feel a little bit different. You might get a little bit of tingling or numbness to the point where you can't even tell from the inside if your fingers are touching or not, or if they're curled. And the other nice thing is that when you're doing this, you might get a little sensation in the fingertips. Your fingertips are the most sensitive part of your hands. So noticing those sensations in your fingers can be fun and can feel quite nice and almost removed from your body because there's a little bit of numbness around them. Maybe, might not be the case for you. It doesn't matter either way. These are just ideas. Keeping that counting going through the fingers, making the leap. Notice what happens when you make the leap. You might want to hold the breath for much longer, all the way down the hand, maybe. But just notice that when you've done a couple of rounds of the hands, coming back to the focus behind your eyelids, how long it feels comfortable to hold that, how many breaths, relaxed breaths can I do before I get distracted and therefore I go back to the fingers. You don't even need to worry about the breath matching the count anymore with the fingers. You're just bringing your attention to them and just going through each one individually and then coming back. to behind your eyelids. You might get comfortable behind your eyelids and decide to stay there for a while, deepening and lengthening that focus there. If you do decide to stay behind your eyelids for longer, notice the colors. Do they change? Does it change? Are there shapes? Are you able to keep the focus with the changes? You're allowed to go along for the ride. How long can you stay there? And don't worry if a thought comes in, that's your opportunity to go, ah, yeah, okay, back to the fingers again. It's another distraction, but the difference is that by going back to your fingers, you're in the present moment. Present moment distractions are absolutely fine. They're the here and now. As you find the focus behind your eyelids gets longer and you're more comfortable there, then you can maybe just kind of take the awareness away from the fingertips and come inside that color. So allow the color to envelop you. Feel the color maybe traveling down the neck into the torso, into your limbs. The color takes up the whole of your body, maybe. This is especially nice if you face a window when you're doing it so that you get as much light coming in as you can. And then giving that color a name, a nice positive word like joy or lightness or calm or love, happiness. Associating the color behind your eyelids with a positive word. And just repeating the word as many times as it feels comfortable. It might be every in breath, it might be every second breath, it might be every out breath. That's up to you. But let the sense of the word come in with the color. And as the color floods your body, so does the sense of that word. To allow it to fill you, allow it to embody yourself, to embody that feeling. And this is where I'm going to leave you. I'm just going to go out the back door and leave you there. If you're feeling nice, it feels like a good place to be, then stay there as long as it feels good. Stay there as long as it's comfortable. If you find yourself tensing muscles to try and keep the focus, then let that go. That might be your time to then move out of it. But as long as you feel soft and in a good space, stick with that. And get to know yourself, get to know the signs of needing to come out of the meditation when you're ready, and do so very slowly, transitioning back into the world, but only when you're ready. Stay with it as long as you can and as long as it feels nice.